We get back into this game. We have one kill up for the side of Salty Potatoes. That was the Joker coming in and finding a kill onto Mowgli underneath the turret. So that is a first blood bounty going into the pockets of Salty Potatoes as K-Last actually comes up and tries to get some damage down on Peachy Lamb, gets a couple hits, and now here Mowgli is coming to help his teammate be safe here in the lane and make sure this Baron can get to the late game.
Yeah, I mean, sorry for the delay, by the way, guys. We did have a small technical difficulty here in production. We got that all sorted out. We're back, ready to go. And already here, Salty Potatoes looking good. Good that first blood and a slight gold lead. And looking to be aggressive here, counter jungling, going into the jungle right here. You see Blackfeather jumps in, gets some damage on the Mowgli, and Rico Mesa actually takes them too, but here comes, Root almost lands. They're trying to just contest this triad here, but it is going to be the Baptiste that gets the final damage onto that tree, and that's pretty important. I mean, he's already starting to get starved out of his lane, out of his jungle, just a tad. You can see here, just down in farm a slight amount as Dynasty Gaby.
Some very aggressive engages here out of Salty Potatoes.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Blackfeather as well as K-Last rotating down and making sure that he's able to engage with Joker has been absolutely amazing to watch. They're really trying to capitalize on Baptiste before he gets that Shatterglass, before he really starts to take off. We do have a very, very slight gold lead on the side of Salty Potatoes, sitting around 200 to 300 by the time all of the jungle is cleared out and all is said and done. It is now Sneaky recalling. This is going to give PT Lamb an opportunity to hold the lane on his side to make sure that Sneaky doesn't have free reign on his farm. Mowgli does rotate up. Worked into a couple different items here. We're at 4 minutes, and Mowgli is actually nowhere near completing a fountain, but the same can be said about K-Last. He's a little bit closer, but, you know, so far it's going to be looking like late fountains for both sides. So maybe on even footing there as well.
Yeah, but both teams are just, I feel like, rotating just a little bit slower than maybe like at peak. I think it's because they're both being pretty cautious. The aggression coming out of Salty Potatoes has died off just a tad, right? They're not they're not trying to snowball anymore after that first couple engages. So now they're just happy going back and forth. But there is a slight edge in CS, definitely in both jungler and lane by Sneaky and Joker here on Salty Potatoes. But I honestly think that that's not a huge deal. You got Baron and Baptiste. These guys need the farm, but they could deal with maybe a slower start than other heroes.
They definitely can. There's definitely a huge opportunity, obviously, for Baron. That's a hero that pretty much everybody in Vainglory at this point knows if they get to late game, they can be such a devastating threat. The one downfall is Rukumeza now at 5 minutes doesn't have that Shatterglass spike that we'd really like to see out of Baptiste. So that's going to definitely affect the team fights coming up, as well as neither team having Fountain yet. K-Last should have it here in the next couple hundred gold, but Mowgli is still sitting pretty substantially down from there. He's definitely a couple hundred gold individually behind, despite the gold lead, coming into exactly even now. We had a couple hundred gold for Salty Potatoes, but that has changed. I mean, we're sitting at an even game right now.
Well, it's definitely true, but I mean, Joker doesn't have a tier 3 item yet either, and so that's actually surprising that both junglers at the almost 6-minute mark haven't gotten that first tier 3. So it's just, like I said, testament to kind of the little bit slower pace. We do have a fight breaking out. They're going in. Ordained's dropped. It's going to discharge as they look to back away. Good disengage by Dynasty, as taking a lot of damage, but they don't give up a kill. That's pretty important as Salty Potato looking to try to engage on this turret one more time. And not really finding anything. Oh, but they might have caught Vox out just a little bit, as you did see Rico Meza try to jump in on Sneaky. But, of course, K-Last is right there to follow up with some damage to make them think twice about that. And Salty Potatoes, they're definitely doing a good job keeping this wave pushed right up into PT Lamb's turret. He's going to have a hard time farming because of it. And this has actually kept Rico Meza up in the lane for quite a long time, which is depriving him of even more farm. Now he's over 10 CS behind the Joker, and that's a pretty big deal here because you don't want to get behind a Crystal Blackfeather.
Yeah, definitely not. And, we talked about how Blackfeather didn't have a tier 3 item yet. He had the gold in his pocket. He just had to rotate down. If we look over at the side of Rukumeza, he's still 400, 500 gold away from completing that Shatterglass. And the Joker and K-Last are coming over to take even more of that farm away. So definitely looking to make sure that the Baptiste doesn't have the spikes that he would, and that again is going to be farm going on over to Joker. They do secure it, and starting to get a little bit more of a gold lead back on the side of Salted Potatoes after Dynasty was able to even it out. So.
Yeah, I mean they're doing the nice pushing the lane up, rotating down, taking the tree at pretty strong standard aggression composition or aggressive strategy. When you are a little bit ahead like they are right now, got to be careful though. Ion Cannon's coming down. There's an Ordained as well. Klas was super low, but Fountain comes out, keeps him alive, but he's going to drop. There's a 1 kill going over to Dynasty as they do find Grumpjaw, the support, taking a little bit too much damage early in that fight. Fountain wasn't enough to keep him around, but now Baron's coming in, looking to get some shots on the Sneaky. This is what's great about the Baron combo with Arden is, he can take an extra barrier to get into a fight and then get out. So Baron's great at doing some of that burst damage, and Arden pairs up nicely with him to give the speed and defense he needs to get in and get out without taking too much of it himself. Here's one thing to help keep them in the gold contention here is I've actually noticed this twice is we have seen the Baptiste and Baron rotating to the jungle backs together, and this is really common when you're behind in gold but you have some strong late game heroes. You definitely look to let the support out on some of that gold and allow your carries to pick it up through the ambient.
Absolutely, because typically the captain builds are just significantly cheaper than carry builds. Just based on the natural item cost. So Mowgli really doesn't need as much gold to be as effective as Rickomeza and PT Lamb do, so definitely smart for them to share. One thing I do want to point out is Mowgli's actually picked up himself a couple of minion candies, so that's really going to be looking for them to find a kill and then really be able to capitalize on it, minion candying that wave and then pushing up. So he does burn 1 just to keep the wave back a little bit. But now Salty Potatoes is looking to get in here and get a little bit of damage down, and Ordained does get blocked, but the stuff does not, and now Klas looking to get out, does block the gauntlet as well.
Yeah, slowed him down though a little bit, so the Ion Cannon was able to connect with Klas again. He's taking so much damage, and I really like what Dynasty's doing here. They're just ensuring that they don't lose this turret, so you see minion candies coming out, everything they can do. They know if they can keep it close into the late game, they'll be fine. Now, BT Lamp does take a very huge on-point damage, and now because of that, he can't be as aggressive, forcing that turret to finally go down. So Salted Potatoes, even in kills, but up in gold thanks to that first turret take on their side, and this rotation is actually going to open up the jungle quite a bit for them. They're going to be able to rotate again, taking away this treant, and they're going to actually contest on the gold miner as well. There's really little right now at this point that Dynasty could do. They're a little bit behind. Barons doesn't have that third tier 3 item yet. It's still a little early for him anyways, so they have to be extremely cautious to not let Salted Potatoes snowball this game away from them.
Yeah, and Sneaky has actually opted to go with the Sorrow Blade instead of the Tension Bow, looking for that raw damage for when he gets onto the backline so that hopefully he can outduel PT Lamb until the late games. Vox does just have a particular attack speed advantage over a Baron. Now Baron obviously has the higher burst damage and obviously has the AoE effect on his attacks. But Sneaky, if he can get into a 1v1 situation with this build, can potentially duel out a Baron.
Yeah, I mean, he can. It's just, it's definitely risky. We talked about how, really the composition of the draft, for the late game especially, does favor Dynasty, but they have to play it smart. They can't give over too many objectives in gold so early, but it's only 2,000. I wouldn't consider this an enormous lead for one that, the Baron can't get out of. It's still definitely going to be hard, but one that, we've seen Barons come back from deficits like this in this composition. So as they, but with Salted Potato, they're being smart, not looking to let it go. On point connects. There's the stuff. He's going to go in, but there's a nice gauntlet to keep that Baron safe. It's not going to be enough, though. Ordained comes out, but it's maybe a little bit too late. Joker looks to keep engaging. Pushes on. Another on point. The Baptiste and the Arden move back between the two turrets. And Salted Potatoes now, they're going to have a pushed up lane. They're going to be able to start putting a lot of damage on this second turret. It's going to go down. And that's 2 more turrets going in. Now this gold lead all the way up to 4,000 in just a few minutes.
Yep, gold lead's sitting about 3,500 is looking good for Salty Potatoes again with this Grumpjaw and the Black Feather. They definitely want to be ahead in the early and mid game, and they're trying their best to make sure they can do so. But again, as this game goes on, obviously the advantage is going to start leaning more and more to PT Lamb, especially now having that third offensive item complete compared to the 2 of Sneaky. So definitely going to be the point where Baron starts to really make a difference in these fights.
Yeah, this is true. This is what, we kind of have to see how Dynasty plays this, because, there's going to be a point where even if they're behind in gold, they'll be able to actually do more damage. And if you're the side of Salty Potato, you need to kind of make sure they don't feel like they get to that point. You really don't want them to like get any leeway. So you don't want to get them a kill. It's actually very low kills. And this is because, it's hard for even Salty Potatoes just to go in and be as aggressive when you have a Baron, because you can be overly aggressive even here when you have a decent gold lead. So I love what Salty Potatoes has done. I mean, they focused on objectives here, pushing the lane when they can, and forcing really the Baptiste to just continually starve himself by not being able to rotate down to the jungle as quickly. And this usually results in Salty Potato taking away additional farm. And with that, they get another objective. It is the Crystal Sentry here in the jungle. First one to go down, so there is 2 more lives remaining.
Yeah, and this gold lead is starting to extend now, almost 5,000 for the side of Salty Potatoes, so they're doing a really good job capitalizing on their early game potential. This is going to be another uncontested gold miner for 206 gold apiece, immense gold payout, going over to the side of Salty Potatoes. And this is going to put them just over the 5,000 advantage mark, as well as looking to get away a little bit of this farm from Dynasty as well. So Rukumeza definitely getting a bit behind, 51 to 72 in the jungle, and Sneaky sitting up 155 by the time he cleans up this wave, 156 to PT Lamb's 144. So definitely doing a little bit better on the farm in both areas. PT Lamb takes a big chunk of damage, and that is going to be Salted Potatoes now looking to push this wave into turret and maybe find a little bit of damage.
Yeah, I mean, nice job. I actually like that they backed away. The Ion Can, of course, being up, that's going to come out, even just to clear the farm, which is exactly what PT Lamb did. And I think just looking to maybe try to get some more additional farms. The gold lead, although significant, isn't enormous. So they actually can just wait here. Crystal Sentries rotate down, and they actually rotate right around it, avoid the vision, and then they're going to find PT Lamb. He gets stuffed. He's not going to be dead. There's the Ordained and the Gauntlet, but when he comes out, he's going to take a lot of damage. Oh, but it is Joker who takes an insane amount. Baptiste is going to be the first to fall, but it's an even trade between Baptiste and the Joker. So 1v1, and actually this is actually really huge for Dynasty. That that was a well executed engagement, but unfortunately, I don't know if stuffing the Baron was the right call. They should have just taken the Baron out. He was completely out of position. They could have probably deleted him. Instead, now he lives longer, and of course that allowed them to pick up that kill.
Absolutely, and again, taking Baron out of the fight when he'd already burned his jump jets and was pretty vulnerable to Joker and Sneaky was really kind of the downfall of that fight, and that's why we see that 1-for-1 trade going on over to the side of Dynasty, and that's just giving Baron more time to come online. We see PT Lamb recalling right now, likely going to pick up that Tornado Trigger or a second monocle. It is a Tornado Trigger. He does have the money to upgrade his boots. Sitting on the platform for quite a long period of time here. Actually does decide to infuse instead of picking up the boots, so just going to bring a little bit more damage to the table. The boots proc is available to him, so he will have that for the next fight. However, Rikumeza and Mowgli's boots are down, and we have boots available for the entire side of Salty Potatoes, as well as a War Treads ready and available on K-Last as they clean up this Kraken. And it doesn't even look like Dynasty knows that's going on, so that's a free uncontested Kraken going over to Salty Potatoes. And with only 3 turrets left, if they can find one good fight here, they could potentially close out this game against Dynasty.
Yeah, and they actually had the push. They could have gone in there and then get contested that. Rarely engaging on a Kraken steal is wise, but when you've got a Baron, you've got so much damage that it definitely is possible.
All right, as this Kraken is now marching down the lane, we see Dynasty making sure they're playing it very safe. They're hugging this turret, making sure that they don't take any excessive damage. A flare comes out of K-Last, making sure he knows where the enemies are. A bunch of damage does go down, looking to find a fight here. And man, oh my gosh, Salty Potatoes drops so quick to the amount of splash damage that Dynasty brings to the table. This Baron and the Baptiste now getting caught up in items here. We're able to make short work of that fight. That should still be
that was all
a turret going down.
What are they thinking? Yeah, I mean, so you got the Echo down, right? And this is what we talked about. The Echo arted They love this in EU, and I love it. It's actually, you know, if you're going to build Arden these days, you got to go Echo just because it's so much fun. But it also is super effective when you've got compositions that can get in and out, right? Because you can get through one gauntlet, but to get through 2 gauntlet walls, positioned correctly. Mowgli did a fantastic job. Dynamite, this was, you know, this is exactly the composition that you don't want to let get to the late game. And the Kraken plus that ace is going to take a huge amount of that gold back into the pockets of Dynasty, and Salted Potato, they better be careful here for the next fight.
Yeah, that 6,000 gold lead that we had is now diminished to just a little bit under 3,000. And one nice thing about the Echo on Arden is there's a little bit of versatility. If you do find a good fight, you can actually use the Echo onto your Vanguard if it just fits the fight better. Obviously, that'll put Echo on a smaller cooldown, but that barrier that Mowgli is going to be able to give to his team, you know, if they do use it properly, you know, maybe if they get a good gauntlet down and they don't need a second one, he can really just build up the tankiness for PT Lamb. He won't have to commit, you know, obviously a 4-item offensive build doesn't leave you much for defense, so there is some potential there for Mowgli. He could flex this Echo over to the Vanguard, you know, if things are just going that way.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. No, absolutely. And actually, that's a great point because it's up so soon that you then get it again for the gauntlet. If you're waiting for a later gauntlet, that's definitely a really good call, and actually something that I hadn't really thought of before. So, I mean, that would be a great strategy. Echo really becoming a very popular support item, actually, of last the nominee. Kind of finally, right?
There's a couple heroes that can really, you know, make good use of the Echo.
Well, so we see it on even Lyra. We see it on everybody now. I mean,
we see it on everybody, and you know, it's maybe not as effective on a hero like Lyra just because, you know, that 25-second plus 115% of the skill cooldown. Yes, you can use it on the Bright Bulwark, but you have to be really ahead for it to work on Lyra. There's a couple of heroes that just really can capitalize on this item, particularly, you know, Catherine, the double gauntlet that we're likely to see.
Yep, here it comes.
There it is, and that is looking for a good fight for the side of Dynasty. They are going to find K-Last, and now Joker and Sneaky are left in a very difficult position, you know, of coming in and trying to get this Kraken steal, or at least forcing the side of Dynasty Gaming out. They do find Mowgli, but man, that is a dangerous position for Joker to be in now. The Ordain does come out, Jump Jets come out, and that is very likely going to be a free Kraken going over to Dynasty Gaming, as well as that gold lead now still sitting around 3,000, but this is going to give Dynasty an opportunity to take a couple turrets off of this.
Yeah, dude,
Baron, they're going to have the ability to do so.
Baron's so stacked right now. 4 offensive items now, so he's at that kind of max build potential. He doesn't have that last defensive item he usually likes to get for tier 3 item, but he is going to be doing a lot of damage, and so, you know, that's a nice trade, right? You're going to trade out. Mowgli's going to go down on the Arden, but you're going to pick up another carry. You're going to secure the Kraken. Maybe a little risky, but Dynasty now, they're going to actually take this gold lead probably back here after this last, well, if they get one more turret here, Ion Cannon coming in to help lower this turret as fast as possible. They do need to be careful here. There is a potential for an engage. There's the stuff. So Baptiste was stuffed up here, likely to go down as he's going to take a turret shot in addition to all the damage from all 3 members of Salty Potato. And it doesn't really slow down or slow down the takedown of the Kraken. We do see Arden's back up here with the Baron. He does have Gauntlet available, but they're just going to get away from this fight. Not risking giving up an ace after this Kraken. They're actually going to get all 3 turrets, though. So Dynamite, that's not a bad trade here for Dynasty to get all of those lane turrets taken out of that Kraken.
Yeah, that's not a bad trade ever, but when you're down as far as you were on the side of Dynasty Gaming, that's an absolutely massive opportunity there that they actually just evened out the turrets. Because of the Kraken giving away 500 gold, it does keep the gold lead, you know, sitting about 2,000 in the side of Salty Potatoes, but this was a 7,000 gold lead no more than, you know, 5 minutes ago. So definitely looking good for Dynasty. The Baron is online, is infused, and at full build. So this is absolutely huge. And actually, we have an Echo coming out on Rikumeza also. And this is a little interesting to me. The double Fearsome Shade obviously makes it very difficult to block. But Rikumeza is not going to really have that upfront damage burst that a Baptiste normally has. So using it more as a repositioning and maybe forcing them back, allowing Baron to get some extra hits down.
I kind of like this because if they get caught out like they are right now, you can put down the Fearsome Shade. There's a gauntlet coming out. You're going to see the second gauntlet being done for additional repositioning. Blackfeather's able to get through both of them, but now he's isolated. He's going to drop, and oh no, there's going to be the Vox going down. This is unfortunately going to be an ace going over to Dynasty again. That Baron is just too fed, and so having the Baptiste move into a somewhat support role where you have the damage, but you also have a lot of defense and support, and on that cooldown. I mean, look, he's got a Clockwork and the Echo. It's just going to be very hard to get onto this Baron, and that's exactly how Dynasty has played this. They're going to take out these two turrets. Denominate, they've won the game.
Yeah, and just like that, Baron coming online here into the late game, they played it so well. Obviously, again, the composition of Salty Potatoes just handles better in the early game. They weren't able to get far enough ahead to really close out the game. And again, that one particular fight with the Kraken where, they were a little out of position. The Joker got pretty much deleted off the map immediately. He got hit by an Ordain, Bad Mojo, the Gauntlet Wall, a double attack from Baron. And then in no time at all, Dynasty Gaming just cleaned up an ace in a matter of seconds. And that 7,000 gold lead just, basically diminished at that point. And that's where Dynasty Gaming was really able to push that advantage and take the win. So definitely looking good for Dynasty here.
Yeah, and we actually see this when you have a strong hyper carry like Baron. You really do want your jungler to be ensured, not just be a jungle damage dealer, although that is good, but like to really help keep your real hard carry alive, your glass cannon, your Baron, and that's exactly what they did. So, wow, I mean that was a pretty exciting matchup, guys. That Dynasty coming back. Salty Potatoes look good, they're a really good team. I'm really impressed with them because they're going up against arguably one of the best teams in Europe right now, but. Hats off to Dynasty. They played their composition to the win condition, especially after the early game. Struggled a little bit. Overall, though, looked really great. So, with that, guys, we're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we'll be getting into all the action here for game number 2 here on the off-stream match for Europe.
$14.99.
Don't miss the call. Download Band. Communication made easy.
Hey everybody, welcome back. We are looking to get here live for game number 2. This is the off-stream match, Vainglory 8. I'm Dragonborn, joined by Denominate. We are your hosts here, bringing you guys these exciting matches and day. That was a pretty exciting one to start off today. I mean, Dynasty coming back from a pretty sizable, deficit and sticking it to Salty Potatoes. And honestly, not necessarily surprising given the composition. Like that's doable, but it's still one of those things where if you're Salty Potatoes, you have to be knocking yourself. You could have closed out that game a little bit faster.
Yeah, it's Definitely could have been closed out a little bit faster. Again, Salty Potatoes did a great job in the early game, really trying to push the advantage that they had. That Grumpjaw and Blackfeather were doing so well together. But again, that one fight at the choke point turret really swung a lot of gold into the pockets of Dynasty Gaming. Baron was able to complete a 4th item, as well as the Echo coming through from the Baptiste was absolutely devastating. It just creates so much crowd control that you have to block. So after the results of that game, Salty Potatoes actually banned away the Baron. The Grace comes off the board for Dynasty Gaming, and that does allow the Lyra to come through. So we do have one healer making it through the draft this time. Dynasty Gaming, again, Mowgli loves this Arden. We used to really know him for that absolutely amazing Finn. Finn obviously having fallen out of the meta quite a bit. It's difficult for him to protect his teammates just due to the amount of dive that a lot of team compositions are set up for now. So Arden really offers a lot of mobility to your team, a lot of protection to your team, as well as can really limit the movement possibilities out of the enemy. So definitely a smart pickup for Mowgli here. He's done really good on this hero. The Kestrel and Baptiste bands come out, and here's a Blackfeather pickup for them. So this is something, again, we talk about flex picks being so prevalent on the B side of the draft. This can be run either in the jungle or in the lane, as well as can be run either as a weapon or a crystal carry. For this team particularly, I'm going to say most of the time this is going to be a jungle crystal Blackfeather. But you know, definitely something that PT Lamb can take into the lane too if he needs to.
Yeah, I mean, it's you know, you look at it with the Vox Lyra, it's a great composition, and I like it, but you know, you have to think that, like, you know, that's all we've seen so far. Salty Potatoes pull out today, and I guess it's just because when you're backed into a corner, like, it is the better pick. With Lyra though, I would have loved to have seen an Idris. Idris with healers do perform really well.
Idris and healers do perform pretty well, and this actually leaves Idris open for the side of Dynasty, because it's very likely not going to be flexed into a jungle. Idris just is too gold dependent. What really makes heroes scale well in the jungle, the Samuel does get picked up here. Jungle heroes typically want to scale more with level than with items, and Idris, whether you build him as weapon or crystal, just scales better with actual gold, just because of those divergent paths. You want to make sure you get that divergent path unlocked as soon as possible. So this is a position now where PT Lamb could pick up the Idris here, and they could run a Blackfeather crystal in the jungle and an Idris weapon in the lane, and really have a lot of dive to jump onto this Samuel and make sure that Samuel's not able to do anything. Now, Samuel can function pretty well into that if it is a triple melee composition. But again, if they're able to get a good gauntlet down, restrict his movement, and just get that sheer burst down on him, Samuel's not going to be building that much defense. So it's going to put him in a dangerous position.
Yeah, the potential's definitely there, Day. But I do like the fact that from a zoning point of view, like, it's going to be hard to get on the Samuel if the Lyra positions correctly. Scarf comes out. Now, so likely this is going to be a lane Blackfeather, right? We have seen that EU loves to run the jungle Scarf. But that's still a interesting pickup, because we have seen the Crystal Blackfeather was usually more prioritized here in Europe, and I actually kind of like this, because it does mean now you don't have to get on top of the Samuel necessarily. You can poke him in the jungle as well, and there's a lot of poke and lockdown here with the Arden Blackfeather. I mean, what's the win condition for Dynasty?
The win condition for Dynasty realistically is the Scarf has to be able to poke somebody out. So this is something we talk about almost week after week, is this Lyra has just typically low defense. The trade-off is she obviously has that heal. But if you can force out an Imperial Sigil early and then get a War Treads down and get a hard engage, then Lyra really loses that advantage that she has. So Scarf should be able to really just poke out the front line. They don't have anybody that can really tank up the Spitfires coming out. Obviously, Vox and Samuel are going to want to be behind the captain. They don't want to take that heavy damage on early. So it's going to be really heavy on the side of Salty Potatoes here. K-Last has to position himself properly. He needs to be blocking out the Spitfires for his team, but he also has to position himself at a point where if they need to make a hard engage, that Vox and Samuel can make a good arcane passage in, preferably the Drifting Dark maybe coming down before Samuel jumps in, so that it's ready to go as he comes into the fight, and really try to get this Blackfeather down very, very quickly, because he's going to be very, very susceptible to the Vox and the Samuel's damage.
No, that's absolutely true. But we have seen Europe, with the Scarf particularly, play really well in the early game. And it really comes down to just those Spitfires, right? Like, and actually, we've seen Dynasty play Scarf, and they're really, really good. There's just definitely a preference on ensuring that they could, land those Spitfires. They get the damage early. So even those Scarf's late game potential is even stronger. Early game, it makes it really, really hard to deal with. Like just the overall, the goop, the positioning, the crowd control. It's all kind of comes together as this really tough package. And typically, what like you said, Mowgli on this Arden, man, his late game Arden, once he gets the Echo, it's probably one of the most annoying supports you have to play against. I mean, Mowgli's Arden is just absolutely monstrous. And he does a great job at like ensuring win conditions for his carries, and that's what's important, right? Like we saw so often, like normally you would see like Echo gauntlets where they're like super far apart, but he actually did a great job at like stacking them with like small spaces, so that if you like kind of made it through the one, you were like right up against the second wall, and it was like really well positioned, just kind of to create that really intense barrier. We are getting into the game though, guys. So Dale, let's kick it off, man. Let's get in.
Yeah, and speaking of Mowgli with that Echo Gauntlet, he's actually really good at really creating that kind of Venn diagram scenario where he's pretty amazing at trapping somebody in the middle. So it really, if you're going to be limited that heavily against Scarf with the Goop and the Dragonfire, it's going to be a pretty dangerous thing. Now, Samuel obviously being, Samuel and Vox both having such late game potential can be absolutely devastating. Again, I want to lean towards Dynasty, though, just because Scarf into a composition that has no front line can really just blow somebody up early, burn out Fountains early, burn out the Imperial Sigil early. And Blackfeather should be able to burn out the Bright Bulwark pretty early if they make a slight engage and the Bulwark is used. That's a pretty long cooldown now that Lyra has to really fight around.
Plus, with the Lyra, like normally you'd like want to get on top of the hyper carry, like the Scarf with the Bulwark, but with the portal and then the Bulwark, but you don't really have like a really strong melee hero that's like a bruiser that wants like a Glaive or a Blackfeather even, that when you get inside right on the carry you could just delete him. So you have a Samuel, there's a lot of poke, and so you actually positioning and poking is really more important. So I actually would be surprised if you see the Lyra use the portal to actually engage. It probably would be used more defensively for most of the game.
Yeah, well, and actually a really good engage coming out of Salty Potatoes there, really wanting to capitalize on the fact that Scarf is not going to come on for quite some time still. Ricumeza comes up, Spitfire does miss onto Sneaky, but that is the Joker sitting up at 9 CS to just the 4 of Ricumeza, so definitely taking on that advantage as early as they can, making sure that Samuel's able to get to that late game. And K-Last using the Imperial Sigil to get out. The Joker now trying to drop that the Malice and Verdicts with the Drifting Dark, but he's getting pretty low on energy.
Yeah, he didn't get a lot of
has the burn down.
He didn't get a lot of damage down either. I mean, he was able to the position, it seemed well, but there's a Goop coming out. Oh, first blood going to Ricumeza as they do find Lyra. Lyra, of course, going to be very squishy here early before she gets some of those items on. And now, right now, actually, it looks like Dynasty struggling to actually deal with balancing the damage of that Elder Treant, so they're actually going to have to back away. Samuel's too low to contest, so they're just going to go to their normal jungle rotations, but nice engagement from Dynasty there to just deal with that Samuel as he hit level 2.
Yeah, the Samuel did hit level 2, had a good damage spike with that Drifting Dark, but again, he missed a lot of those Malice and Verdicts, so that did give a kill on over to the side of Dynasty Gaming. Gold going into Rikumeza's pocket. Actually, it went into Mowgli's pocket. I could have swore I went into Scarf's pocket, but that's just going to accelerate a Fountain here now. Unfortunately, it didn't go to Ricumeza. Just to get that Scarf to the late game is going to be absolutely huge. Again, at no point in this game will Lyra really be able to frontline those Spitfires as they start coming out. So definitely wanting to see a lot of damage come out of Ricumeza here. I'd almost say because there's no melee hero, you just skip the Frostburn and go into something like a a Shatterglass Eve Broken Myth build, and there could be a lot of poke potential for this Scarf. Mowgli rotating up as well as Ricumeza, and it looks like we're gonna have a fight here in the lane dragon. A little bit of damage coming down here on this turret. The Joker getting some good poke, and that is just going to be a third of the turret going down, so getting some good chip damage here off early.
Yeah, I mean, they're trying to rotate up as often as they can to ensure that the Vox Lyra doesn't, overpower Blackfeather here for the early game. Dynasty, of course, doing a good job overall with that. Like, just because you're going to see the it's not really gank potential, but just the Samuel coming out with that Drifting Darkness in the lane can be really devastating. So you just have to make sure you counter that. Lyra, of course, with that heal is going to keep Vox in pretty good shape for most of the game as well. So it's really important that like Blackfeather keeps things pretty tight. When you're going to see Scarf coming up here, it does not land the Spitfire onto Lyra, but K-Last is pretty low, so he's going to have to use the Sigil just for himself. That's going to be on cooldown as Dynasty now have an opportunity to deal with the lane with less aggression from over on Salty Potatoes. Samuel, Joker, coming up to lane. Drifting Darkness says ready to go if he wishes to use it. He's going to actually just Malice Invert a little bit of poke as they look to rotate back down. I actually love that Dynasty really loves using those minion candies as a way to just hold the lane a little bit longer as they scale up, especially when they deal with like an aggressive sneaky here. We're going to see Rikomeza coming back here, coming back in lane. 3 men all try to make sure they keep this turret alive. It's at half health day, so it's pretty low.
Yeah, again, Salty Potatoes has done a really good job in both games, actually, really trying to push their advantage. Rukameza and PT Lamb did a good job clearing out the wave there, but not before the Joker was able to get a couple Malice and Verdicts down on that turret. Coming into this level 6 for the Joker, when he finishes this Frostburn here, he has enough gold. Now as he rotates, he's going to get a little additional damage as well as be able to keep somebody in the kill zone and allow Sneaky to really start to scale up his damage. He's going to back now and complete the Poison Shiv and very likely work into a Sorrow Blade here again, as he did in the last build. Actually, he does decide to go the Tension Bow this time. A little interesting to me, knowing that Blackfeather is going to want to dive fairly hard.
Yeah, and Blackfeather is great in the Tension Bow because of that early, if he lands the on point at the start of the engagement, he essentially absorbs the entire Tension Bow damage. It's really Scarf I think Tension Bow might have a little bit more effect on. We actually saw PT Lab rotate to the backs, take away Scarf's backs, just get that extra gold, and so he actually finally built his tier 3 item. He had plenty of gold to do so, just definitely being very patient on that decision. Here he comes in, looking to go in. Gets right on top of Sneaky, on point used. That's what he said. The Tension Bow is really not as effective early if PT Lamp could get the damage on and on point. Sneaky, though, is going to heal right back up thanks to Lyra. Dynasty and Salty Potatoes actually being very even here in these engagements as far as how much damage they both take and absorb here. Oh, but here comes the Drifting Darkness, Malice and Verdicts. They do so much damage, so much empowered damage in area that look how low Rikomeza went.
Yeah, and that's pretty much going to force the entire side of Dynasty off. I mean, staying at this point is basically a free kill going on over to the side of Salty Potatoes. So that is going to be turret number 1 now, going down. And this game that's been dead even on gold this whole time is now sitting around 1,000 gold lead for the side of Salty Potatoes. The Joker does have that Frostburn complete and will very likely be working into a Broken Myth as his second item. But he does need to commit some gold into some energy regeneration, because as the game goes on and Samuel levels up his abilities, they're going to become more and more dependent on energy, and he's going to find himself in a position where he's not able to continue fighting.
And this is true, and of course you see with that energy battery, he is starting to build into that path, right, to get some additional energy. We oftentimes see the Eve of Harvest because of just how much lifesteal it gives him, and Samuel already has a lot of sustain and heal, not too bad. This is actually pretty reminiscent of Game 1, right? We saw Salty Potatoes does a great job early. The question is, can they close this game out? Scarf is definitely going to outscale the Samuel, and may, as far as crystal damage is concerned, in late game. So positioning will be very important for the Samuel not to take a lot of that goop and burst damage from the Scarf if he wants to win these later engagements. Infusion, though, picked up. Joker looking to have that damage. He doesn't have a second tier 3 item, so he goes with the Infusion, which we know very gold effective, at least for the 2 minutes that you have it. They're engaging on that second turret. It gets really low day, but they do again. We see the minion candies coming out. Mowgli's decision. Oh, here comes the gauntlet in there. He doesn't have the echo yet, but he does trap in one member. As Joker and K-Last looking to try to get out of that fight. Now they're going to actually re-engage. Nice Malice and Verdicts coming out with that empowerment from the Drifting Darkness. And, dude, Salty Potato turns it around.
Yeah, Salty Potato's looking really good right now. They did a good job in that last fight particularly, backing out very heavily as the Dragonfire came out. And, perfect timing. Synced up the Drifting Dark dropping down with the Dragon's Fire and made him, be able to get a lot of poke damage down. And there's no healing available on the side of Dynasty Gaming, so that's really what allowed them to force Dynasty back and get that turret down, extending their gold lead, now sitting around 2,000 at this 9-minute mark. Sneaky is sitting up quite a substantial amount in farm in the lane as well.
Yeah, Sneaky's definitely doing a good job this game compared to the Black Feather. I mean, CS-wise, this was kind of actually the same, not as much so maybe in game 1, but the same. They were able to outfarm, outplay the early game. So it really comes down to the late game. And, you know, same as before, they get the first 2 turrets. The question is, can they be aggressive enough to keep closing this game? Like, they really need to make sure they don't allow Ricomezzo to get to full build. Like, that's really important. You got to end the game under 18 minutes, because once Scarf builds that 3rd tier 3 item, you know, one wrong engagement and you're going to get deleted.
Yeah, and we already see the damage starting to come through. The Imperial Sigil does heal Joker up for all the damage he takes, but Scarf doesn't even have that 2nd item completed yet. So as this game goes on, it's going to be a lot more difficult for Kaylas to keep his team healthy. They're getting a lot of damage down here on these turrets, though. Samuel's so good at pushing turrets, and this wave is
they're
here.
Get it.
This might be the choke point turret going down for free, uncontested, and that is almost a 4,000 gold lead now for Salty Potatoes. Again, they do a really great job pushing their advantage in the early game. The consistency has just been a thing for me. Is going into the late game, you know, they really pick risky fights that, you know, have really cost them a couple games, in my opinion, at least. You know, it's, if you have a huge advantage and then you give up an ace, such a dramatic ace as well, then it can definitely swing favor back into the enemy team. They do pick up a immense gold payout here. The full 300 does go over to each of these players on Salty Potatoes, sitting, you know, still around a 3,000 gold lead. But, you know, definitely have a little bit of an advantage here. It's going to be all about Ricomezzo getting this Broken Myth completed and being able to scale up in these fights.
Yeah, that's for sure. Scarf does need to finish that Broken Myth, and I don't mind the infusion buys, but at some point you just have to make the decision not to engage and then just focus on the farm. But having the infusion does mean, though, if they do get engaged upon, he's got a little bit more of a burst. We see, of course, infusions being bought by both Crystal junglers, and both weapon carries, both Sneaky and PT Lamb, have their weapon infusion still active. So, I mean, the game is going to extend here a little bit longer. Right? It feels like a longer game than it is. I mean, it's only 11 minutes, but really it's just been because Salty Potatoes has done such a good job at pushing objectives one at a time. Does stop the recall for Scarf, though. This is actually really bad for Ricomezzo. This is not the hero you want to have stuck here, as they're going to look to engage. You actually see up on the top side, Arden comes in, trying to play some decoy here. There comes the 2nd gauntlet, and here comes the Scarf's Dragon Breath going in to lead Sneaky. Joker's very low as well, but he's got to be careful. It's just Ricomezzo left, as Samuel did do nice work of both PT Lamb and Mowgli.
Yeah, really good trade out there for Dynasty. They were able to find a kill. Not a huge bounty, but, you know, it's better than getting aced on, especially with how separated Ricomezzo was. Ricomezzo was actually almost able to find a kill onto Joker, especially with the Crystal Sentry there helping him out. So Scarf does get the gold from that to finish off the Broken Myth. He has his level 9 infusion pop, so maybe popped it a little bit early in that last fight. Coming into the fight, he did hit level 10, but he used the infusion before the fight, so a little bit of a weaker infusion for Ricomezzo, but overall it should be fine. Again, as Scarf gets to the later game, he's going to become that dragon we expect him to be, so these Spitfires are going to start to really, really hurt, as well as once he gets that Eve completed, he's going to have a lot more sustain. So,
Dave, can we appreciate the fact that Salty Potatoes was able to get all 3 turrets without even getting a kill? Like, that's something that's kind of crazy. You don't see that too often, where you're just playing so well in your rotations and how you pressure. I mean, part of that's Dynasty being smart not to give up a kill, but, you know, that's a rare stat line to see when you give 3 turrets down but not a single kill.
Yeah, and, you know, again, it was all on the Joker, making good rotations up, using the Drifting Dark. Didn't even really look for the kill most of the time, just looked to get damage down on the turret, knowing that moving 900 gold into the team's pocket was going to be more valuable than picking up 1 kill. Obviously, he did try to find them, but when Dynasty was forced back, they didn't spend too much time chasing like we see a lot of teams do. You know, you dive for that kill. when you could have had the turret. And that's something that Salty Potatoes has just been absolutely amazing on to me, is their objective control has been absolutely amazing coming into this Dynasty game.
Yeah, it was good in game 1 as well. Unfortunately, they just got outscaled late game, which was expected. But this game, they got to be sure they don't do the same thing. And I like the aggression. They're going to go here, clear out this rotation. They've got a gold mine they could take. There's really nothing in the jungle that Dynasty could do to stop this additional gold going into the pockets of Salty Potatoes. So they're going to take this gold miner uncontested. That's not a surprise. And then what this is going to mean is, when you're looking at this, what is this? Close to a 4,000 gold lead. Surprisingly low considering, but that's just because you're not seeing this huge kill spree racked up by Salted Potatoes. But 4,000 gold, 4 or 5,000 gold here now. Yeah, 5,000. This is going to be a sizable chunk. And when you look at the itemization, you kind of have to expect, especially from the Vox, I mean, he's going to be able to dish out a lot of damage.
Absolutely. Vox's, build in particularly, now PT Lamb is running the same build. Vox it just works a little better on Vox. So Salty Potatoes looking to take out this Crystal Sentry here.
It's eliminated.
For all they do. That is the last life. The Kraken is now on the board. We are at this 15-minute mark. And Salty Potatoes could potentially find a fight here and win the game. They might not even need the Kraken if they're able to find an ace.
I have to see. I think they might just take it. I think they just might take the Kraken because, you've got a Scarf, and granted, Scarf's great at taking down those Krakens, but it's a nice front line, and that's one thing you mentioned. Against the Scarf, you don't have a front line. The Kraken could actually be a front line in a fight when you played correctly. So they are going to start to engage. A little risky here because we do see the side of Dynasty. They see it, they know it, but it looks like Salty Potatoes might redecide on just the engagement instead of the Kraken. Yeah, they're just going to completely stop taking the Kraken, and this is actually going to buy some time. Dynasty's going to be able to clear out some of this vision. But they're engaging on the Mowgli. Mowgli better be careful. He's going to go with the gauntlet. Oh, but he's so low. Here comes the Dragon Bet. They're driving even low. The Samuel's got so much sustain. It's a 1-for-1 trade, though. Can Blackfeather survive? He is. He's going to get the Lyra. And Samuel now, Joker, last man standing. But, oh, it's so close. The on-point misses. This is going to be the ace. Joker's got it. Wow. That was so unfortunate. No on-point meant that Joker was able to deal additional damage. Blackfeather wasn't able to go back in.
Yeah, and that's a good ace going on over to the side of Salted Potatoes here. I'm actually surprised that Joker didn't shove the wave up just to try to get some additional pressure to make sure Scarf is forced to clean out the ace minions. Instead, he's going to start up the Kraken by himself, and this is super risky to me, especially since he's not kiting the Kraken the way he should be. He took a lot of damage just standing on top of the Kraken, and that's going to force him out now. Sneaky is coming down to trade off the aggro here, as well as K-Last being here is going to be able to heal Joker up. But fortunately for them, Riku Meza did not come over, and this is looking to be an uncontested Kraken now going over to Salted Potatoes. Yeah,
I mean, that's not surprising. I mean, actually, Dynasty was kind of risky trying to contest the Kraken the first time, but they did have the damage, and I actually think Salted Potato just did engage fast enough, right? Like, you basically could just turn your attention, especially with the Lyra, and just jump on the Scarf. Just take him out right away. They did end up winning the fight overall, and with this Kraken push, this is going to be very bleak. And Denominate, this could be our first game 3 of the off-stream match. For everyone watching, we've been doing this off-stream match every single Vainglory day for Saturday since this season started, and we have not had a game 3 yet.
That is true, at least for Europe. PT Lamb taking a lot of damage here, but a good Dragonfire comes through. Sneaky getting dropped dangerously low, and now PT Lamb looking to go in. This might be risky, and PT Lamb does drop now, and that is looking really good for the side of Salty Potatoes. All they really have to do here is prevent Riku Meza from recalling, and they should be in a pretty good spot to take this game away.
Yeah, I think Samuel can just solo this, man. Look at how much damage he's doing.
Yeah, he should be able to find the kill. That is an ace going on over Lyra and Vox. Obviously, make it through, and this is going to be game number 3. Salty Potatoes, particularly the performance from Joker on this game, did absolutely amazing again. Pretty low score line for an 18-minute game, 13 kills total. But again, the Joker on his rotations up was not overcommitting to chasing and was able to find a lot of clean damage onto the turrets, which really allowed them to get an advantage early.
Absolutely. Yeah, I thought the composition was good. I think actually in draft, Salted Potato has that stronger early game composition each time, and they just have to play it well. Scarf, I really just think was not able to get to that power spike soon enough, and that that could be a problem. You know, it's not quite as powerful as Baron is late game, so, you know, it's not as of a sure thing that you can come back in those fights. And there was actually some, unfortunately, Blackfeather, PT Lamb, made some positional mistakes. He actually decided to go in. He had survived one of that last engagement, was very low, very close to going down, and decided to go back in again without starting with that on point to ensure he had that barrier before he went in. And that might have been kind of what resulted in that last fight going so heavily in favor of Salty Potato.
Yeah, and again, the Scarf pick was just a little questionable to me from the start. You know, we talked about this team being having good performances on the Crystal Blackfeather in general. So I really would have liked to see someone who really can duel with the Vox. Vox going into the late game just doesn't really have an issue with Blackfeather. So fortunately, Sneaky was able to kite him around, get a lot of damage down. And he's just able to ramp up breaking point much easier than this Blackfeather. So I would have liked to see the Blackfeather go the Crystal route in the jungle and then pick up the Kestrel was banned, the Baron was banned, but we did have the we had a couple options available to us. Obviously, Idris was still on the table. Even a Gwen is pretty good at dealing a Vox in comparison to a Blackfeather.
Yeah, I was surprised by the Blackfeather pick, honestly, and I thought it was actually going to be the Crystal Blackfeather in the jungle. But then when they flexed it up, it meant because they wanted the Scarf, and I know EU loves the Scarf, and it is a very strong pick. It did mean that I think on the lane side they were a little bit weaker. And that was apparent. I mean, look, they were able to get 3 turrets without even having to get a kill, and that's just because of how weak Blackfeather was at dealing with that lane pressure. It just wasn't working out for them at all. So I think you got to go back to the drawing boards on that one, but we are going to take a quick break, everybody. When we come back, game number 3 will be starting, so you're not going to miss it. This is a huge deal. I'm trying to actually look at it. This is Salty Potatoes. Yeah, if they don't win if they don't win today, I don't think they're going to get enough points to make it to the live championship. Can we confirm that? Let me just we'll confirm it after the break. I'll look at it. All right, we're going to take a quick break, everyone.
During the break.
All right.
$14.99.
Don't miss the call. Download Band. Communication made easy.
Hey everybody, welcome back. We are here with the Vainglory off-stream matches. That's right. Every week, Vainglory, they've got 4 games going on. 3 of them are streamed. The 4th one is here on the VIS channel. Make sure you guys follow us and or subscribe. We'd greatly appreciate it. And as always, I'm your host, Dragonborn. Denominate's here as we look to cast this game. And we have the first Game 3 for Europe. I'm trying to remember if we had a Game 3 for North America, because I don't recall it. But I definitely know for certainty that's the first Game 3 we've had for all of Europe since we started these off-stream games. So, kind of exciting. We're about ready to get into it. Let me just check with the teams and see if they're ready. Alright, and once we get the A-OK from them, we'll jump into the draft. For everyone who's just maybe jumping on, just watching now, what you guys have missed was that we did have Dynasty with the Baron, was able to come back in game number 1, taking that game from Salty Potatoes. Salty Potatoes had the early lead, but then game 2, it was all Salty Potatoes, able to pressure the lane to the point where they were able to effectively take all of the lane turrets without even getting a kill on their stat line, and now pushing us to game number 3. Salty Potatoes versus Dynasty. Denominate, what do you think is going to be the results?
This one's been pretty hard to tell, this series in general, just because Salty Potatoes has looked so good in the early game in both games. If they can get a favorable draft and do the same thing, then it could very well go to the side of Salty Potatoes, which I'd be pretty impressed, because Dynasty Gaming is sitting, you know, right up near the top here of the European standings. So definitely an opportunity here for Salty Potatoes. If they can pick up a third win here, they could get some points. You know, taking points off of the number 3 team being all the way down at the bottom is huge. So, you know, it's a pretty standard ban here coming out. The Lyra and the Grace come off, but this does give the opportunity for Baron to still continue to make it through the draft. It would be kind of risky to pick it up first.
Yeah, they're not going to pick it up first. On the table. Yeah, Idris and Arden and Catherine. So they're going to take the Arden. Dynasty's been playing the Arden every single game here, and that's not really a surprise day. But what I think is interesting is if you decide to go with the Baron again, I think Salty Potatoes has to be a little sensitive to that. Their plan didn't work by letting the Baron through. So I think this time you definitely look at banning the Baron or taking it, and they're going to pick up the Baron here. And this is kind of cool because you know,
they have the opportunity here still to ban out the Idris.
Exactly.
Is actually what they screwed themselves was in the first game. They do ban away the Idris. They did this on the first game. They picked up you know, I can't remember what the ban was, but they banned away the Idris, didn't pick the Baron, and then gave the Baron away over to the side of Dynasty. So now that they have the Baron and they have the Idris banned away, this draft is already starting to look really good for the side of Salty Potatoes, and you can see Dynasty taking a lot of time here trying to figure out what they want to ban away. With the Baron on the table, obviously, this is going to be a weapon Baron. You know, the Baron is not a flex pick like we see many other heroes that can be played in the lane. We know what the laner is going to be here, so they ban away the Grumpjaw, and now this gives an opportunity that they can pick up a pick here on the side of Salty Potatoes that can be flexed into either the jungle or the carry position, or I mean jungle or the captain position, something like a Glaive or a Baptiste, or they could even just go the safe route and pick up something like a Catherine that we know does so well into the late game. Paired with the Baron, that's going to be absolutely huge, especially if you can stun Mowgli out of one of these gauntlets, and that is exactly what they're going to pick up is this Catherine.
Yeah, I think what would be great here would be that Echo Catherine we see, because you really just you just want to stop them. You actually want to completely silence him, and a silence would mean no Echo and or Gauntlet for at least a few seconds as you could deal out some of that damage. I think ideally you want to get that early engage where you're actually getting the silence off right away. We actually do see Catherine's building Echo and or Null Wave to just like effectively stop any kind of crucibles that could come from that silence as well. Blackfeather Scarf. So this is what we saw kind of Dynasty play the last game. The only difference, it actually is exactly the same. The question is this going to be more effective into the Baron, because this is still very squishy and problematic, and I'm a little worried here for Dynasty.
Definitely a little bit worried. This is a pretty squishy composition, particularly going into the Baron. I think if you are Salty Potatoes here, you pick up the Baptiste. I mean, Scarf usually handles pretty well when he can outpoke the Baptiste, but because we have this Catherine, she can really commit to that front line. Obviously, as the game goes on, she's going to get tankier and tankier just off of her heroic perk that, you know, the Stormguard. So every single stun is going to be additional armor and shield and really allow her to live in that front line, so you don't have that same advantage. They actually pick up the Samuel here, which, you know, with the Baron, they do have a lot of siege potential onto these turrets. So far, you know, I want to give the skill matchup to Dynasty, but the skill is realistically pretty close, and I want to give the draft on over to the side of Salty Potatoes. So I think Salty Potatoes wins this one, Dragon.
I'll be honest, with the Baron pick and the Samuel and the Catherine, this is a very strong composition from Salty Potatoes, and we know that mechanically they look like they could go toe to toe with Dynasty. Really, I feel mechanically and skill matchup wise, this is an even contest. So when there's a slight edge in hero composition, I'm going to give it to that team. But this is definitely going to be Salty Potatoes, I think, at least for this game. Of course, we'll have to wait and see. You know, we've seen all kinds of crazy outcomes here in Europe as these games never necessarily go exactly the way we planned it, or the way we think that it's going to go. These teams are very creative, and they're very innovative in how they execute some of these compositions, and some actually pretty impressive strategies have come from Europe of late. So, you know, I believe the Ardent Idris was really popular here in Europe against the Baron before we saw it really take shape in North America.
Yeah, Europe definitely really brought the Idris to the table. Using it into the Baron was incredibly smart. Obviously, the Idris getting banned away with the Baron pickup. So, again, this composition that Salty Potatoes has put together is incredibly strong. Right. And we just didn't see a very good performance out of PT Lamb last game on this Blackfeather. He, went in a little too far ahead of his team. Maybe this game they can find a little bit cleaner way to the backline. I almost would have liked to see this Scarf paired up against the Baron in the lane, just because Baron is so good into Blackfeather, particularly in the early game, especially the weapon Blackfeather. A huge engage coming here out of Dynasty.
Yeah,
they do not want to lose this early game.
No, K-Last, I mean, he's just going to have to be very careful. I think he just gives this farm out. It's just one CS. I don't think that's a huge deal to lose that. I'm actually surprised that they have so much time. They're going to go for the Elder Treant, but they could probably keep pushing it here, try to engage on the Catherine. Catherine looks to go in. Merciless Pursuit, not able to get that CS stolen away. So right now, at least experience-wise, Dynasty has a little bit of an early upper hand here, as they did a good job. Samuel, when he's level 1, he's not as effective until he hits level 2. So Scarf still has that Spitfire as well. Not a bad start for Dynasty.
Nope, and K-Last is doing a good job sitting up here in the lane, making sure he can build up as many stacks as he can. He's already got 2 now in a minute and a half. Actually, recalling here is a little interesting to me. So
the whole team recalled.
Yeah, the whole team recalled. He could have stayed, and he does rotate and get some vision. I almost think it would have been more beneficial for him to go ahead and stay. We obviously see the minion candy has come out. That's really keeping PT Lamb in a position that, the wave is held in a safe spot for Sneaky to return. But K-Last really needs to get some stacks here. There's a 3rd stack for him. But remember, this is going to be all about K-Last being able to be in Scarf's face, block out those Spitfires in the late game, and allow his team to make a safe engage. So we really got to see K-Last tank up, because if he gets poked out by Scarf early, then the fight's going to start swinging towards Dynasty's way. Here comes the Joker looking to rotate up, and another minion candy actually gets popped now. Both teams really prioritizing these minion candies right now, and that's gonna, really keep this lane right here in the dead center. And another stack goes on over to K-Last, so already having 5 stacks is an additional 10 armor and shield. So that's pretty huge.
No, Catherine, I love heroic perk. They really kind of buffed it the last couple updates. It's something that, we actually, for the longest time, never saw Catherine played, and it was just, maybe she was, right on that edge. But after that update, it still took a while, I think, for people to adapt Catherine playstyle. But now, I mean, Catherine is becoming one of the most, used supports in these certain circumstances, in a lot of them, just because of her anti-burst potential. DC, one of the other things, Dynasty is still able to clear the farm effectively, though. Scarf is a much better position than what we saw Scarf play from the last game. If you look at his CS, he's hanging right up with the Samuel, right? Like, there's real no advantage yet. Oh, we do have we missed it, guys. Fight in the lane. We did see Baron go down. Blackfeather, nice job by PT Lamb.
Yeah, really good job by PT Lamb there. He did get an on-point down as Baron committed into trying to get the kill that let him survive. And then Mowgli, with a good use of boots, comes in, notices that Sneaky's taking the turret aggro, and cleans him up, getting the first blood on over in their pocket, sitting at about 1,000 gold lead now for the side of Dynasty. And this is not what we've seen. We've seen pretty typically Salted Potatoes taking that early advantage. And that is not the case. And, man, look at the huge amount of damage coming out of the Joker.
Nice.
That is a 2nd kill going on over to Mowgli. And now they have the opportunity to push some of this jungle and maybe even find a kill on K-Last. Oh, they're going to prioritize the farm here.
So this is like Yeah, this is like a different Scarf. I mean, we did say that, you know, these Scarf players typically are very, very good, right? Like, they know exactly how to position and how to put down that poke damage. And game one, we didn't see any of it, but this time, and I think it's really because the Samuel pick, I'm a little... It's the only thing from the side of Salty Potatoes I was a little questioning, because it doesn't really take out the Scarf early game. It doesn't really do anything to Scarf early game. So, now, I think if Ricomeza keeps this up, man, Denominate, this is going to be a tough match for Salty Potatoes.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a tough match. Again, this is a Baron, though. This is a late-game composition that we can have a good comeback on for Salty Potatoes. We expect the side of Dynasty to win the early game here, and they're doing so. Kayla is doing a great job making sure he's building up these stacks. He's sitting about 2 per minute right now, maybe just a hair under. But, man, look at this engage now coming on out of Dynasty Gaming, looking to clean up some farm. That is the Triet going on over to Ricomeza. That's going to top him off, and that is going to get Scarf up to level 6 now. That Dragonfire is available, and Joker sitting just around the halfway to level 6 mark. As he clears out his farm, he will get closer and closer. But definitely a slight advantage right now for the side of Dynasty Gaming.
PT Lamb is actually doing a great job on the Black Feather. I mean, I'm really impressed so far with how he's dealt with. Much better from game one. Or sorry, for game number 2. He's not taking as much careless damage, and Mowgli this time paired up with him in the lane have done a better job at dodging some of that out. Yeah. So I mean, but really, I think the big thing here is Ricomeza on the Scarf. We did see the Scarf really have a huge impact game 2 because of how behind he was at this point at like 5 or 6 minutes. He's at a point now where he's ahead in experience, he's ahead in gold. He goes Frostbird first, but like he's gonna be doing a lot of damage.
Yep, and that's gonna be another kill going on over to the side of Dynasty Gaming. A 3rd kill now. That one does go to Ricomeza. Joker does find his CS there in the jungle, but it looks like Dynasty looking now to take out this sentry. And I think this is really smart because this is something we saw Salty Potatoes do last game, and that really gave them advantage, being able to pick a fight wherever they want without having that interference. So looking a lot better for Dynasty this game. But again, Baron is just going to be absolutely huge in the late game.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what happened in game 1, right? Like Baron, it was Dynasty that had it, that was able to just take over the game. So we definitely if you're sneaky, you still got your turret at 6 minutes. You actually have almost no damage on your turret either. So this is where the only like downfall with the Black Feather is, you know, you want Black Feather to dodge the nice damage and have some sustain, but he's not very good at pushing the lane. I mean, he's not very good at clearing this lane, pushing it up, and taking damage on the turret. It's really going to be a team effort of them moving together and getting kills to be able to push those objectives, which is completely different than how Salty Potatoes won game number 2. They didn't even need to get kills, and that's how effective their composition was.
Yeah, and we saw a lot of really good rotations out of Samuel, particularly in game number 2. Kaylas continuing to work on his stacks now, sitting at still around 2 a minute, so that's definitely where you want to be on Catherine. And now we have the side of Dynasty rotating up. Scarf going to be looking to get some damage down. That's the real siege potential that Dynasty has here. So if they can get a Spitfire through onto this turret, followed up by a Goop, they can get some damage down. But instead, they're going to rotate down as the Ion Cannon comes out. And now Joker is actually rotated up to the lane with no minions actually to push into this turret. Sneaky does take the opportunity here to
Oh, nice gauntlet. Really huge. Kaylas is going to be dropping 2. Now he doesn't have the stun. He's just going to sit there and take it. And 2 kills, 2 massive kills going over to Dynasty. This is what we talked about, though. For them to be able to push turrets, they do need to take out some of the members of Salty Potatoes to get it done.
Yeah, they definitely do. And this should be an easy first turret going over to them. The on point does come out and hits Baron, so PT Lamb does not take any damage from Sneaky. And that is going to be turret number 1 at 8 minutes going on over to the side of Dynasty, as well as this gold miner looking to be worked on now. And what really was the reason that Dynasty was able to take advantage of that was Baron recalled, and Joker and Kaylas rotated down through the jungle, knowing that Dynasty had just rotated down that side and they got caught out.
Yeah, it was like, I mean, I understand like you maybe think they might rotate to their backs or something, but like very bad mistake. No vision, and then face checking that, unfortunately, after Baron had just recalled. Unfortunate timing for them, but a mistake that they probably could have avoided.
Absolutely avoidable, absolutely. And Ricomeza is actually getting very, very close to have this broken myth complete. By the time he rotates through the jungle, he should very likely be just a couple, like 100 gold away. So they may even look to take the bottoms here from the side of Salty Potatoes just to get that item spike. Actually, nope, he is going to be able to get it with the gold ticking. I didn't even consider that. So definitely looking like an advantage for the side of Dynasty here. Being ahead on Scarf is absolutely huge, but again, as Baron gets into that third and fourth item, he's going to become such a threat. And these teams have really prioritized the minion candy, which is interesting to me, just because you know, we haven't seen minion candy really since Worlds. I mean, Worlds was you know, really the birth of the minion candy. Obviously, Armada really brought that to the table, and a lot of teams took it then. I was never really sure why it fell off, though. I mean, it was so strong at that time, and there wasn't really any massive changes to it, but a lot of teams have really strayed away from it.
Yeah, I mean, it takes a very strong macro playstyle and awareness, because it's like when do you want to push, when do you need to hold, when do you need to freeze? All these things have to be answered in a very short amount of time, and I think that sometimes it's just easy not to even ask that question. Like, you don't even need it. Just go push the lane. Just don't even worry about it. But I really like what you're doing. I mean, they've honestly, Europe has really started to impress me. Their macro play has improved dramatically, and this is a great game. These two teams very strong, both of them, as we look to get into potentially another engagement here. Now, Dynasty's only gotten one turret. We're at the 10-minute mark, but they're looking to put a lot of pressure on the second lane turret here if they could get on. Blackfeather does have the strong engage. There's a nice poke onto Sneaky again from the on point for Blackfeather. He looks to jump on. Baron's very low. There's a fountain coming out with the Crucible, so it's going to force PT Lamb back. But now they're going to be able to push this lane up here a little bit more, or clear out some of this back jungle.
And Baron is actually taking this opportunity to recall and get himself a tension bow, so a little bit late now. We have a second item complete at just around 11 minutes, so a little behind where we saw Baron in the first game. And we are definitely seeing reflected in the damage. A good gauntlet comes down. Oh man, the Dragonfire comes through with the gauntlet. PT Lamb might drop to this turret. Nope, he does break the aggro. I think if I was gonna say, I think if you're Dynasty here, you just let Samuel go and take the turret. If he rotates to your jungle and takes the jungle, that's fine. You go through and you take his. So
I think he's just gonna recall. Yeah,
here is looking to get the recall down now. And that is now going to be a gold mine going over to the side of Dynasty, really pushing that lead, sitting over right around 8,000 gold here at the 11-minute mark is an absolutely huge lead to have, and especially on a Scarf. That's where your ideal situation is. Get the early game fights with the Scarf, and your late game is going to come online so much quicker.
Yeah, I mean, this is where Scarf's going to really shine, and it's actually impressive. Now, Baron's still a risk. We should reiterate that. He's only got 2 tier 3 items at 11 minutes. When he gets that third one, and then eventually, if they get to the point where they get the fourth one, we could be talking about a completely different game. But right now, Scarf's got 2 tier 3 items, building very, very, he's going to be at the third one in about 2.5, 3 minutes. This is a game where Dynasty could easily push it enough that it's going to be hard for Baron to get back into it. And what I really want to see, though, is Mowgli. Mowgli is in a unique position where, if he can avoid a stun early on while he's doing a gauntlet, he can get 2 gauntlets and force the Baron to be completely trapped, isolated. And that is how Dynasty can win this game. If Baron gets any kind of leverage, if he's able to move around freely, it could be a really hard time in the next few minutes for Dynasty.
Yeah, and Catherine's really fallen off on getting her stacks, able to frontline herself for the Scarf. We were sitting at a point where, Kaylas was getting 2 stacks a minute, which is absolutely great for Catherine. Your late game comes so much earlier when you have that tankiness. And now we're coming on 13 minutes at only 17 stacks, so just barely over a stack a minute now. And it's not going to help her protect herself from the Scarf. Now, we have an Echo now complete for Catherine, which is kind of risky because you don't have a whole lot of utility for your team. Yes, you can get that double silence down, but your team doesn't really have the damage yet to capitalize on it.
Yeah, but I think what's worth noting here is with the double Echo and Cath is if you could stop Arden from using his gauntlets, right? Like if you echo it, silence it, and keep him, and you're actually being the ones aggressing, this is going to allow Barry to just move back and forth the fight. Like he's not going to have any barrier, but if you don't get the silence onto Arden, that Echo is going to be pointless, right? Like that's really what's going to come down to. Execution is going to have to be absolutely perfect for K-Last here in these next couple of fights.
Yeah, and it's going to be about Mowgli making sure that he can block at least one of those silences out so that the whole team's not silenced for 5 seconds, because that would be pretty devastating. Knowing that Scarf has to be able to cast, If he's silenced, he's not going to be able to contribute anything to the fight. It's going to be all about PT Lamb, and PT Lamb's not going to be able to get his barrier if he's silenced. So definitely going to be huge on K-Last here.
Absolutely. High risk, high reward, as Dynasty is still able to kind of move freely through the jungle of Salty Potatoes. So there's nothing Salty Potato could do to stop that. Gold lead is actually approaching 10,000. That's a very high gold lead, even at 14-minute mark, and usually the sign of a strong snowball in effect, and that's what we've got right here. Baron's still in a good spot. I mean, he's got the third tier 3 item. Actually goes with Tornado Trigger third. Sometimes that's a fourth tier 3 item, but I think in this case he just needs to get that extra damage out before he takes a goop or a Spitfire. So I actually kind of like the idea of getting that Tornado Trigger at the third item. Definitely going to get that Tyrant's Monocle fourth, though.
Yeah, definitely going to go into the Tyrant's Monocle. We need that burst damage here out of Baron to really take PT Lamb out. And Dynasty Gaming cleans up another gold mine here. So sitting at a 9,000 gold lead, they're looking in a great spot. Again, K-Last has not really done the greatest job getting his stacks here going into the mid to late game. So he is a little bit squishier than we'd like to see going into the Scarf. As Sneaky approaches level 12, though, he will get that additional range as long as he puts the last point into the Ion Cannon, which, is definitely what he's going to be aiming for. So that'll give him a little bit of advantage in these fights. But again, Rikumeza has done such a good job on the Scarf this game. Mowgli's cleaned up a lot of the kills, but Rikumeza, just in general on the Scarf, has been absolutely amazing. A big engage out of PT Lamb here. Takes a lot of damage in return, but they find the Joker. And now Rikumeza looking to maybe make sure Sneaky can't re-engage, and this should be the choke point turret very easily going on over to the side of Dynasty, and they may look to take on the Kraken at this point.
Yeah, and they definitely would be able to. I mean, Baron could potentially try to find something, but I think what we see a lot of teams do is move the Kraken into that tri-bush on the enemy side so they get vision, so they could turn it. And look how fast they're taking this Kraken down. It's worth noting both the Echo and the Gauntlet are on a pretty sizable cooldown, so this Kraken push might be a little risky because you are going to be pushing with that Echo not available for that next fight. But may not matter. You got the Scarf. Scarf does have 3 tier 3 items now, but Baron's got 4. And no defensive, so it's a little risky, but you got to be a little careful here. This is when we usually see Baron start surprising us in these fights, Denominate. So, with that, this Kraken push coming down, dragons breathing down their neck, literally and figuratively. It's gonna be a tough. It's gonna be tough here. I think we both were calling Salty Potatoes to potentially win this because the Baron pick and Catherine could be so strong. But of course, what we didn't expect because of game number 2 was how strong Rikumeza's Scarf would be when he's playing it well. Nice job by Sneaky. Get some damage onto Rikumeza. Scarf's actually got to be careful here. Takes another Malice and Verdict as well, so he's got to be exceptionally careful. Gauntlet comes out. Echo's still on cooldown. 20 more seconds, so they have to be very careful. There's going to be a kill. Scarf goes down. PT Lamb, though, the barrier does keep him alive just a little bit longer, but it's going to be an ace. And that is not what you want to do to a Baron. I am kind of surprised. They do get the turrets. They're going to get this last one very low as well, but giving up the ace was not the right call.
Giving up the ace was not the right call, indeed. And, we look at the build here on Samuel and Scarf. Scarf is working into a 4th offensive item now, really trying to poke out the side of Salty Potatoes. And Samuel hasn't even completed his 3rd yet. That's a 50 CS lead for Rikumeza here in the jungle. PT Lamb a little bit over Sneaky in the lane as well. But again, Baron having that 4th item complete and getting this turret down too, really trying to bring back some of that gold lead. That 10,000 lead that we had is now sitting around 7,000. So that's going to give Sneaky the opportunity to buy an Aegis here, as well as reinfuse next time he gets a chance to shop. Catherine's still sitting on pretty low items, though. I mean, the gold difference is still pretty noticeable. We have the Fountain, we have the Echo, but that is it completed for Catherine, and it's wow, it's.
I'm just disappointed.
Have the Crucible now. Okay, so he did take the chance to shop now, has the Crucible. But, I mean, look at Mowgli's build. We have the War Treads complete. We have an Atlas Pauldron as well complete. So,
that's
one more
important.
fight. Yeah, one more fight could very easily go on over to the side of Dynasty. They're playing it a little bit safe here, knowing that they need to be careful. Baron actually, instead of completing an Aegis, has completed a Metal Jacket instead, really relying on Kaylas to soak up those Spitfires for him. But if Sneak is able to position himself in a fight, get an attack down, get a good jump jets down, Scarf has absolutely no armor. And we've seen that in that last fight there in the base. He was able to delete Scarf in no time at all.
Yeah, and they just didn't need to give that ace up. I mean, I'm just so, like, disappointed because not giving up the ace just means it's a lot harder for Salty Potatoes to start, farming again in the jungle. Getting an ace gives a lot of confidence as well. But with that, it's still very much favoring Dynasty. Dynasty here has so much damage that they just need to engage the next fight. And there's one last turret left. They cannot afford to give up another ace, though, because that would leave open Kraken. And we're getting so late into the game that a Kraken push may not win it completely, but it definitely puts you at risk of losing the game now. And when you're going up against the Baron, it's very risky. We do see a nice gauntlet, but Baron gets really far out. Wait, what just happened? Another gauntlet coming in, stunning up Sneaky, and then the Dragon Breath's going to come in here and just clean house. Sneaky so low, but Baron gets the shots off that he needs to, and Scarf goes down. It is a 1-for-1 trade, though, as Kaylas dropped, but this is actually really risky. Now, Baron is starting to get that damage down, and I really think that was a misengagement, Denomine. Like, you didn't get the damage on Baron that you needed to from both Scarf and Blackfeather.
That was the fight right there that Mowgli needed to echo the Vanguard. He wasted a second gauntlet. Baron jumped out of both of them because of the anti-crowd control built into his jump jets. So the gauntlets literally got wasted there. If Mowgli echoed the Vanguard in that fight and Vanguarded to Rikumeza there on the back line, he lives for that one more basic attack. Baron dies, and you push and win the game at that point. So, I mean, maybe a little bit misuse of the item there.
Yeah, actually, that's the strategy that I don't think we've necessarily seen a whole lot, and that could be very effective, especially when you have so much burst coming out on the side of a hero like Baron. We did see Arden actually drop just there as Sneaky was able to come down and help out. Samuel was pretty low, but very risky. And just like that, the gold lead is still really, really far and away in favor of Dynasty, but we're getting to the point where it doesn't really matter. And Salty Potatoes, they feel so confident. They're going to start up this Kraken, and looking at the positioning, I don't think there's anything that Scarf and Blackfeather can do. They're so far away, and this Kraken is very nearly taken.
Yeah, definitely going to be dangerous, especially since they spot out PT Lamb. Sneaky jumps in to make sure that PT Lamb is forced out, and now PT Lamb is very likely going to just look to recall and group up with the team, try to find a fight. All they have to do is find 1, maybe 2 kills here, and they can push down that last turret that literally only has, a couple attacks, even with the barrier up, till it drops. So if Rikumeza can find some good damage here, he is infused. They should be able to do this.
Yeah, they're pushing in. This is what we talked about. Now, they are going up against a full-forced Dynasty. They've got all their members, but if they could just get 1 kill. Look how much damage on the turret they're coming in. Now, there's another gauntlet that's kind of been blocked out, but they do find Sneaky, but Sneaky doesn't need to get out of the gauntlet. He's doing so much damage in the gauntlet. Takes down the Scarf as he's channeling Dragon Breath. Blackfeathers does have a decent amount of health, but he's got to be so careful. He's trying to get on the Baron. Oh, missed on point. He gets the kill, but this is so risky. Samuel should be able to finish it off. And Salty Potatoes, they are doing it again. This Baron pick, you just cannot disrespect. And this could be game.
This very well could be game. Now, the death timers will come out a little bit quicker as these turrets get destroyed, and actually not enough damage coming out of Salty Potatoes there to really get a whole lot down until the Kraken comes. They will not be able to split the damage because they can't out-damage the shielding that the other turret offers. And Rikumeza is now up, so that's going to force Salty Potatoes back. And just like that, Dynasty Gaming has another opportunity here to, try to find a better fight. It's looking really good for Salty Potatoes right now. But again, Dynasty, if they can find 1 good fight, they should be able to pick it, especially with Scarf having the gold very soon to finish a 3rd item. He actually sells the Heavy Prism and picks up a Metal Jacket. So wanting to survive a little bit longer against Sneaky, sacrificing a little bit of damage to do so.
Yeah, this is a close game, man. Even in objectives, even in in items, if you think about it, right? Like everyone's starting to get max builds, so the gold difference has become pretty much meaningless. Everyone's got infusions. So this is going to be a very intense fight here. I do like the vision coming out of the side of Salty Potatoes, so there's no way that backdoors can happen potentially. And Catherine Def, of course, able to. She's got a few flares up there as well. Now this is going to be all about engagement day. Like, who's going to get that first poke? We've seen typically that even if the Scarf gets the first poke, Baron's poke is bigger. I mean, there's no doubt. Like his poke, man, is so much harder when he gets those 2 shots after the rocket jump.
Yeah, it's an absolutely huge spike, especially with that tension bow. So he'll get the first attack down and then look to use the jump jets to reposition himself away from PT Lamb. Baron has completed War Treads now, so they have 2 heavy engaging boots on the team, as well as that does provide a bonus chunk of health going on.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll have to see here. Oh, we do see Salty Potatoes. They are sitting at the top lane, looking to try to maybe sneak backdoor this. They could do it. Dynasty now, they don't know. Do they know? I don't think they know. They realize, no. Oh my goodness, Salty Potatoes are doing it. They're backdooring. Both teams unaware of what's going on. Or sorry, just Dynasty unaware. You're going to see the recall. Oh, it's too late. It's too late. They are going to do it. Salty Potatoes just beat Dynasty 2-1. Wow. I'm speechless. Day, you sound speechless too.
I actually, my power went out for a second there. I switched onto my phone to finish it off, and I didn't make it back in time. That is Salty Potatoes cleaning out game number 2 against Dynasty, taking down the 3rd seeded team here in Europe. That definitely gives them an opportunity this weekend to pick up some additional points and perhaps still make it to the Unified Finals if they're able to pick up some points on our Sunday games.
Yeah, I mean, they're actually at a great spot to do it, guys. I mean, that is absolutely wild. Here, let me get back in here, guys. I want to show you guys the builds real quick. Sometimes I forget to do that. Look at this, guys. So this is it. 11-8. Dynasty winning in kills. This Salty Potatoes just simply doesn't need kills to win games. I mean, they've just made that point over and over again. Their macro play is really good. I mean, so is Dynasty. This was really a contested series, but I just gotta say, man, Baron, teams gotta start banning it. I'm really kind of surprised that there's that level of, at least it seems like how Europe's been working in draft, that you're letting Baron go through the draft too easily, and teams are, when they get Baron, look like they're able to handle it in the late game just fine.
Yeah, they've been doing absolutely great, Dragon. The Baron itself is just so devastating once he gets that 4th item complete, and that's what we saw in Game 1 and in Game 3. It was looking really bad for whichever team had Baron. That 4th item came online, and Infusion came online, and the fight swung very, very heavily in their favor.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that is a 3rd seed team that just dropped to an 8 seed team, so that is a huge upset, and 2 points going on over to the side of Salty Potatoes. They have an opportunity now moving into our Sunday games, which will obviously be on the main Vainglory channel. That they could potentially come up from that point where they have 3 points going into this game. They now have 5, and I think G2 is only sitting at 8, and they currently hold that 6th spot. And if memory serves me correctly, I believe SK took a 2-0 victory over G2
today.
Actually, no, never mind. G2 is next game. Okay, so I think
we're gonna go watch
SK next game.
We're gonna go watch that in a little bit. Actually, I'm gonna go watch that. Hey, congratulations, Kaylas, Sneaky, the Joker, man. You guys did it. You took down Dynasty, which is one of the better EU teams in all of EU. You're proving yourself that you guys are definitely contenders here, and this is gonna be a really cool week. Denominator, this is a lot like North America, where these teams, these lower challenger teams that got in, all have shots at getting to the Vainglory 8. I mean, this is crazy. It's crazy how this has all worked out. So, we're going to say goodnight. Denominate, thanks for joining me, man. Thanks, everybody, for coming out and watching. We appreciate it. I will try to take some medicine to clear things up here. There's nothing I can do physically. I'm stuffed up congested a little bit, and I can't really do much right now. So hopefully I get better, guys. I'll see you guys all in a little bit. We'll actually be back here, 2.5 hours or so, or 3 hours for the off-stream match for North America. So head over to the Vainglory 8 channel, catch all the rest of the European action, and come back again here for North America. We'll see you guys all in a little bit. Good night.